Welcome to the Weather Farm. We have the weather for the United States. We are breaking down the systems that will impact your neighborhood with severe weather across the Central Plains, and we take a look region by region for the upcoming 48 hours, temperatures and precipitation. Let's dive right into our forecast. As we begin our Wednesday, we are watching a continued area of disturbed weather across the Great Lakes and upper Ohio Valley. This is associated with an upper level low that is continuing to bring unsettled weather, and we could see a little bit of rain moving through Illinois and Indiana for our Wednesday. Out along the East Coast, we're watching a line of storms. Nothing severe, just heavy rain, an occasional rumble or two of thunder that's making its way through Virginia, down through North Carolina, and across Texas, where we didn't really see much in the way of tornadoes on our Tuesday. We're watching for those storms to continue to make their way offshore down toward the Houston area. You could be seeing heavy rains to begin your Wednesday. So let's put our map into motion as we're going to continue to watch this system. And we are watching here across Nebraska into Kansas during the day on our Wednesday. This is where we are going to watch the focus for one area of severe weather. Also across western Texas, maybe even including the Dallas area. We're going to have to continue to watch that, but as the afternoon progresses, we're going to see storms firing from Kansas down through Texas. Some of these could be severe in their nature. In terms of our severe outlook, the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted three main areas for severe weather for our Wednesday with a slight risk, being southeastern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas, into almost Oklahoma City, almost over towards Tulsa, and then down in the Rio Grande Valley, and just west of the Dallas Metroplex area. When we look at the specific threats, we're not really seeing much in the way of tornadoes, except in far southwestern Kansas. So we're going to watch some discrete cells to fire up late in our afternoon on Wednesday. Those could spin up an isolated tornado or two, but yet the chance is only a 5% chance. I am surprised that we don't have an area of 2% risk outside of the Dallas Fort Worth area. We'll look at the future radar a little bit later, and there is going to be some bowing with that radar in the future for Wednesday afternoon into evening that could spin up an isolated tornado. But right now, we don't really see that risk. We do see the greatest chance of significant hail, softball size or higher, again, across southwestern Kansas into far northern parts of Oklahoma. So we're going to watch this area as well. As we go through the week, we are watching this upper level low continue to make its way through the northern plains into the Great Lakes, and it's just going to take its time moving through here. We're watching another area of low pressure that's off the coast of California by the time we get to Wednesday night, and it's not really going to impact weather too much as we go into our Thursday. But by the time we get to Friday, we are seeing a significant trough digging across the eastern half of the United States. This is why we think that the Carolinas are going to be in play for some severe weather on Friday, because we have converging air coming into the valley of the trough, and we have diverging air in the exit region. So this is where we tend to see spin-ups of severe weather. So as we go through the day Friday, we're going to continue to watch for that divergence air. But for most of the weekend, the eastern half of the United States is going to be, I won't say cold, because I mean they're going to be in the 50s and 60s, but it is cooler than normal for this time of the year as we begin the month of June. Out west, we're going to continue to see record high temperatures being possible with an extreme area of ridging across that area. We are continuing to watch that little low pressure area that's off the Baja by the time we get to Saturday morning. This doesn't look significant now, but it is going to move onshore as we begin our next work week, and it's going to provide a mechanism and a focus point for severe weather from the Central Plains to the Northern Rockies. So let's continue to put this map into motion. We watch this low to sit and spin, and it's this trough that's digging in, pushing out southwesterly winds ahead of it. So by the time we get to our Monday, we're seeing southwesterly winds across the Central Plains, a digging trough. So we're going to watch this area for severe weather for our Monday. Still a long way out. A lot can change with the evolution of this upper air pattern, but it is a sign that something is changing in the atmosphere. And by the time we get to the end of next week, we are seeing a full-blown pattern change for the eastern half of the United States. With warm weather around the 4th, 5th, 6th of June surging to the east, we could be seeing 90s into the Great Lakes area, 80s up into New England. But we'll continue to watch to see how this develops over the next few days. And how long this pattern will last, that's still be determined. But we do see around the 4th through the 6th of June, a definite pattern change for the United States. So let's go back and put our map into motion for the rest of our Wednesday. We see those storms making their way into the Dallas metro area. We see an area of precipitation into Louisiana and southern Mississippi that can provide some heavy rain. And really, it's going to be across the Dixie Alley in southern states where we're going to see a constant daily chance of rain and heavy rains if you get under the right thunderstorm. And we're watching those storms continue to move out of Kansas overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning. By the time we wake up Thursday morning, most of those storms have dissipated overnight after they lost the daytime heating. But as we go into the day Thursday, we get new heating. We're going to watch storms across Missouri, down across Mississippi into Alabama, even into Georgia and South Carolina. So taking a look at our future radar, this is Wednesday morning about 10 a.m. This is Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. So we're going to see scattered thunderstorms possible across this area, even across parts of eastern Wyoming. But as we go into the day Wednesday, we're going to watch these storms become more numerous across Nebraska and central Kansas. We're not really concerned about these right now, but it's by the time we get to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon that we start to see these cells popping across eastern Colorado, the panhandle of Oklahoma, and southwestern Kansas. These are the ones that we believe could develop very rapidly and turn severe, the main threat being wind and hail, but an isolated tornado can't be ruled out. We're starting to see, though, a line form here across northwestern Kansas. That's going to help keep the storms under severe weather and lessen the tornado threat. Wind and hail will be the primary threat as that line continues to develop. By the time we get to 9 p.m., we're seeing heavy rains across western Kansas, making their way into Oklahoma and into central Kansas. And as we go into the night, that's going to continue to form into a cluster of storms. It's going to lose that daytime heating, the real energy, and they're really going to fizzle out by the time we wake up on our Thursday morning as they move into western Missouri. But on Thursday, we could see a few more firing across southern Missouri into northern Arkansas. Even a skinny line of storms back across Kansas can't be ruled out. As we begin our Wednesday, we are watching storms across far southern Texas with a couple isolated storms across central Texas into far northern Texas here. We're going to watch these continue to move off to the south and east during the day. And as we get towards the afternoon, we're going to watch an area of storms approach the Dallas metro area as well as start to fire across western Texas. Any one of these could produce heavy amounts of rain and isolated strong winds and hail. And we're going to see some discrete cells forming by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, making their way towards the Dallas metro area. This is why I believe that the threat of tornadoes is possible near Dallas, especially parts west of Dallas during the day on Wednesday, even though the Storm Prediction Center did not include them in the tornado outlook. Across southeastern Texas, just north of Houston, you're seeing basically a line of storms. Strong winds and hail are the primary threat here. But as we go through the day, we're going to watch those storms kind of congeal into a line by about 9 o'clock as they're going to race to the south and east. We have heavy amounts of rain across parts of Louisiana. Here are those storms we talked about in Kansas making their way south and east. And as we lose that daytime heating, those storms are going to fizzle out. But by the time we get to Thursday afternoon, we're going to watch a line of storms from Alabama to Mississippi through Louisiana. The real threat across parts of Texas is going to die down. In terms of our temperatures for our Wednesday, we're going to see cooler than normal temperatures across the Great Lakes into the Northeast, where we have that cloud cover, where we have those heavy amounts of rain falling, 50s and 60s. Down along the southern coast, where the rain showers are keeping your temperatures a little cooler across the Dallas area, 70s and 80s are likely. 80s along the southern coast, 90s down through Florida. The deserts are warm, triple digits are likely across most areas. And we have a heat wave going on across the Pacific Northwest. Temperatures into the 90s for eastern Washington through central Oregon, down through California. As we make our way to our Thursday, it's much of the same for temperatures. Places in Idaho, you could be reaching the low 90s for your afternoon highs. We're seeing some moderation across the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley with temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Texas, you're warming back into the 80s and 90s. As those rain showers continue to move east through Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, temperatures here will be held into the 70s. But look across parts of Canada, across parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan, we have mid to upper 80s. So it's just a complete flip of the pattern with the warm air surging over the western half of the United States into the Canadian provinces and that deep trough over the eastern half of the United States, coupled with that upper level low, helping to keep the eastern half cooler than normal. As we make our way into our Friday, warmth begins to spread up through the central plains, 70s and 80s, 90s across the Canadian prairies, but look across the southwest. Las Vegas, you're going to be in the triple digits. We're going to see triple digits up through the central parts of California, where we could see highs as high as 105. In the deserts, we're going to be approaching 110, 115, but it's in the eastern half of the United States where we see that rainfall happening for our Friday, temperatures being held down in the 60s. Taking a look at this region by region, we're going to have 50s across most of Pennsylvania and New York for our Wednesday, where we're under those cloud covers and those showers. Mid 70s into parts of Maine, Quebec, and Ontario, and across parts of Virginia down into the 60s. As we go to our Thursday, temperatures begin to moderate, 60s across the far north, 70s across Pennsylvania, approaching 80 in southern Virginia. But as that next wave of storms moves in for our Friday, temperatures are going to pull back a little bit. We're going to see temperatures in the 60s and 70s. In terms of our precipitation, the heaviest amounts are going to fall across parts of Delaware, Maryland, and eastern Virginia, where we can see 1 to 2 inches of rain by the time we get to Friday morning. Out across western Pennsylvania, up to an inch is likely as those showers and storms continue to move off towards the east. Looking across the southeast, temperatures generally in the 80s and 90s for most areas for our Wednesday, cooling off slightly with that rain moving out of Texas into Mississippi and Alabama. Temperatures here in the 70s, but it is mid to upper 80s for the Carolinas as well as most of Florida for our Thursday. And making our way into Friday, it is almost a repeat pattern of temperatures. In terms of our precipitation, by the time we get to Friday morning, we could see isolated areas 1 to 2 inches. It just really is going to be dependent upon if you get under the right thunderstorms and where that heavy rain axis does set up. As we look across parts of Texas on our Wednesday, we have those storms making their way through Texas. That's going to help hold temperatures down in the 70s and 80s. The exception being the Rio Grande Valley, where you could be approaching the 90s. Across parts of Kansas, where the rain is the heaviest, temperatures are in the 60s and 70s. We're going to see that continue for Thursday, though Texas, you are warming up as those showers move east into parts of Mississippi and Alabama. But across parts of New Mexico, you're heating up into the mid 90s for your Thursday. We do see a little bit pullback in temperatures, widespread 70s from Kansas through Oklahoma into most of Texas, including the Dallas Metroplex area. You could approach 80 for your Friday afternoon highs. The real 90s are going to be kept into far southern Texas. In terms of our precipitation, again, it's going to be dependent upon where we get under the right thunderstorms. We can see 1 to 2 inches of rain across parts of southeastern Texas into Louisiana, where we could see up to 4 inches of rain. Across parts of Kansas, we could see 1 to 2 inches of rain likely. Looking through the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, 50s and 60s will be common for your Wednesday due to that upper level low, moderating a few degrees warmer for our Thursday, and even to our Friday, we start to see the return of the 70s for most area. This does bring us to about seasonal norms for this time of the year, but as we go into our weekend, we're going to watch another jab of cooler air making its way through the upper Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley. Temperatures will pull back to the 60s for Indiana and Ohio for your Saturday, but look out to the west. Across parts of Missouri and western Illinois, temperatures into the mid 80s. That is a sign of the weather that is coming your way. In terms of precipitation, the heaviest amounts are going to be across Kansas through southern Missouri into Kentucky. Up to an inch of rain is likely. Most areas are going to receive under a quarter of an inch due to that upper level low that is continuing to spin across this area and provide a daily chance of scattered storms. Across the northern plains, temperatures are in the 60s across the Dakotas, 70s for your Montana for your Wednesday, warming into the 70s across most areas for your Thursday, the exception being where the cloud cover is heavier, you'll be held in the 60s. But as we make our way to Friday, we start to see 70s and 80s, even some 90s here across parts of southern Manitoba for your Friday afternoon. This is just a sign of the warmth that's going to move in as we begin the month of June. Rainfall amounts are going to be light, generally less than a quarter of an inch. It is the desert Southwest where temperatures are going to really start to surge. We're going to see 90s and 100s for our Wednesday, much of the same for our Thursday, but it's Friday where we start to see those temperatures really start to surge. 103 for Las Vegas, southwestern Utah approaching triple digits. The deserts, you're going to be 110 to 115. And as we make our way into our Saturday, it is more of the same. So the warmth is going to be the key across this area for the weekend. And there's going to be little, if any, chance of precipitation across this area over the next 48 hours. In the Pacific Northwest, it's widespread 80s and 90s for your Wednesday. A little bit cooler across the Cascades, temperatures 50s and 60s. Seattle, you're a little bit cooler for your Thursday, but on the other side of the mountains, the warmth continues with temperatures in the 80s and 90s. We can even have a pocket here in southern Idaho in the mid 90s for our Thursday. And that continues into our Friday as we start to get a return of warmer weather for Seattle and Portland. 70s and 80s are likely for your temperatures. And even into Saturday, we're going to see widespread 90s, eastern Washington into Oregon, northern Nevada, southern Idaho. We could be in the upper 90s. The heaviest precipitation will fall across parts of British Columbia with rainfall approaching 1 inch. As we look at the temperature outlook as we begin the month of June, the eastern 2/3 of the nation are expected to be above normal in terms of our temperatures to start the month of June. After an exceptionally warm weekend across the West, we are going to turn much cooler with that pattern flip around the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th of June. We're going to see below normal temperatures during this time period across the western third of the United States. And in terms of our precipitation, most areas are going to be at normal or just slightly above normal. The exception being the Northeast, where you're going to experience below normal precipitation to begin the month of June. Hurricane season begins June 1st, and right now we are seeing no tropical activity across the Atlantic over the next 7 days. This is good news, as the National Hurricane Center has predicted that 2025 will be an above normal active season for hurricanes. So we'll continue to monitor this in our future forecasts and bring you the latest information that we have on any tropical waves or tropical systems that do develop out in the Atlantic. Well, we thank you for joining us here at the Weather Farm. We hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Check back with us again on Friday for your latest forecast, and we hope you have a great day.